everyone. Let's get started so everyone can settle in. Our panel has been shortened by a few minutes, so we're going to try accelerate and hurry things along. But let me get started. So despite the economic and business opportunities that women represent, we all know, and we're here to discuss how they're an underserved segment for financial inclusion. The Findex data has shown that women are 23% less likely to get credit from financial institutions compared to men. They're 18% less likely to save in financial institutions compared to men. As the last panel pointed out, data is everything. Data is everywhere. And we know that it's one of the barriers in terms of data collection, quality, and usage to closing the financial gender gap as well. Today, we have an amazing set of panelists that are going to actually dive deeper into the opportunities that gender data can present with dashboards from Bangladesh and Nigeria and use cases to highlight the opportunities that data presents in addressing and improving financial inclusion for women. I also wanted to share very quickly that the Gates Foundation has, since 2006, been working on closing gender data gaps because we believe that data has been a driver for improving policies and programs in economic, financial, and social inclusion for women. More recently, we have been working with a number of people here, included on financial inclusion data gaps. And today, it's my pleasure to have an amazing set of panelists and talk about the work that Financial Alliance for Women, in collaboration with ConsumerCentriX, has been doing, both in Bangladesh and Nigeria, with partners including Central Bank of Nigeria and Bangladesh Bank, to improve gender measurement and market insights by dashboards, women's financial inclusion data dashboards, building on some of the work that the WIFID partnership has been doing, pooling together data from credit registries, from financial institutions, from consumer banks, and regulators to help build a picture of where women stand today with financial inclusion. So with that, let me give you a very brief introduction to our panelists, who the moderators already introduced. We have Dr. RAHMAN to our left, who is the Deputy Governor of Bangladesh Bank, David Taylor from ConsumerCentriX, who's right here. We have SOPHIA Bu, who's the Head of Gender and Special Segments with the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's nice to have her here. And ABIODUN OLUBITAN, right next to me, who heads the W initiative at Access Bank, Nigeria. With that, I'm going to hand it over to David to actually present some of the dashboards, the innovations and the use cases from Bangladesh and Nigeria.
Thank you so much. I'm going to keep this short, but please start thinking of questions, and we're going to give you opportunities to play with some of these things later on. So I'm going to take you very quickly through the journeys that we've walked with Bangladesh and Nigeria. I'm going to start with Bangladesh. I've had the opportunity to work with all these great panelists up here. So we started working in Bangladesh 2 years ago, where Bangladesh had done an incredible job. They've been collecting sex-disaggregated data, gender-disaggregated data, because there are 3 genders they collect in Bangladesh. And they've been collecting that data for nearly 10 years. And they've done, to be fair, a very good job of publishing it and making it accessible, but it looked like this. There were PDF tables on the website that you have to trawl through. They're produced every month, and you can't access the historical data. So they'd done an excellent job in doing the hard bit, which was getting the data and publishing it, but it doesn't mean anything. So we got the great job, the fun job of coming in and building these into narrative stories, finding the insights, helping the policymakers and the private sector actually turn this into something useful. So we spent that time working with Bangladesh Bank, building the Bangladesh Women's Financial Inclusion Data Dashboard. There's the website, there's a QR code. Please go and play with it, have a look. We've actually built, well, we call it a dashboard. It's actually 8 dashboards. So we had the WIFID summary, which looks like this, where we have some key indicators, the number of deposits, value of deposits, number of loans, value of loans for banks, for financial companies, for MFIs, and for mobile money. We have credit, which is one of my favorite in the Bangladesh series. If you're going to go and want to have a look at one, have a look at the credit. This is fantastic. Bangladesh was not only collecting this data, they were collecting it at a really disaggregated level. So it wasn't at the record level, but they had to provide, the banks have to provide a lot of detail when they're reporting, including for MSMEs, CMSMEs in Bangladesh, because you have cottage industries. So we can break this down by the subsector, by the metric, by, in some cases, the geographic area of these. So it's a very, very rich data set that we can use and gain the insights from. So this is just one insight that pops up from the credit dashboard. You can see on the right-hand side here, we can compare private commercial banks with state-owned commercial banks. You can see that purple circle on the right there. That's the number of cottage industries. Yellow is women. So that's the percentage of women who are within cottage industries who are receiving loans. So the number of women who are receiving loans in private commercial banks, really high. But when we start looking at the value, and we start looking at higher value businesses, the small and medium businesses, the number of loans and the value of loans for private commercial banks is tiny. So they're very good at getting cottage industries in by giving them very, very small loans, but the growth is happening through state-owned commercial banks. And you can see the higher level loans. Women are getting higher values in higher value businesses through state commercial banks. That's a very high level insight, and there's others that we're getting to which are much more commercially applicable. And that takes me on to the work that we're doing with Nigeria. This is the most exciting thing, the most exciting data sets I've worked with in a long time in Nigeria. I have to thank CBN and your collaboration with NIBS for giving me the opportunity to work on this. So this, unfortunately, is dummy data, but this is how the dashboards in Nigeria are going to look. There are 3 data sets that we're working with: account ownership by gender, credit by gender, and transactions by gender. In Nigeria, for each of these things, and I have to recognize Aisha at this point for her leadership in starting this project on. She's no longer involved, but she was the driving force to get this all rolling. So thank you so much, Aisha. We think that that Nigeria will be the first country to launch these. Hopefully it will be next week, possibly later, but soon these 3 dashboards will be coming out. And these are on the transaction or individual level. So there is a record of every account, of every credit transaction, and every transaction. So I got the data for transactions last week, and there's 390 million records of transactions conducted in Nigeria between the 1st and the 25th of May. So we've got this huge volume, and for that we have, for every record, we have the state, we have the age, we have the purpose of the transaction, we have the method that the transaction was conducted through. So it's incredibly rich. I wish this had been launched, because there's some insights here which will directly affect the market. The minute that we launch these dashboards, I promise you, especially on the transaction data, there are insights where the banks in the room will sit and they will change their policies, and they will direct and develop new products to meet a particularly underserved part of the sector, which I can't mention, but it's going to be so exciting. And this takes me to the point of the dashboards, is these aren't here for measurement. The primary goal of these shouldn't be to measure. Measuring is lovely, and we heard yesterday from some of the panels the importance of measuring and the impact that they can have. But the real importance is that this can drive the industry and make the change by providing the information that people like Access Bank here, actually need to make smarter investments and develop better products for women. So when we're talking about data, we shouldn't just be thinking about measurement, but really the value we can add to the industry by directly driving change. We're running short, so I'm going to stop here. I could do another 2 hours on this. Anyone who's interested, please come and see me after. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to demo this live. I'm please come and see me. Yeah, no, we don't have time, do we?
I was hoping for another insight.
I'll come back.
Last minute. All right. Well, thanks very much for showing those dashboards. On March 6th, the Bangladesh Bank launched the Bangladesh Gender Data Dashboard with a wide range of stakeholders in the room, so financial service providers and regulators. I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Rahman, on where you feel some of the opportunities are for sharing this data publicly with the banks and with the public, and where you anticipate this being used to improve policies and programs for financial inclusion for women.
Okay, thank you for having me here. Before I go to your question, I want to bring one example that we have faced during COVID stimulus package distribution period. During that period, our garments industry was having some problem to provide salaries to our female workers, like 4 million female workers working in Bangladesh. And there were a problem to distribute the salary, and government decided to give the salary from the government accounts. But one problem is there, most of them didn't have any mobile account or bank account. Then the garments owners came out and said that, why don't you give the money to us, we'll be distributing to our workers. And government said, no, that is not going to happen. We want to see the direct beneficiary get the money. And within a week or so, we took initiative so that everyone must have an account, and that had happened. And within 15 days, we were successfully distributed all the salaries to those garments workers, and they became so happy by this initiative. So you can see what is the impact of financial inclusion, particularly for the disadvantaged, or the, if I say specifically for the women, other part of the population. Having said that, Bangladesh is an emerging country, and having some backwardness in terms of social values, in terms of religious issues, in terms of education. So it's not easy to incorporate everyone in the financial networks so easily. So with this in mind, I think financial data dashboard for the women is a fantastic initiative. I must appreciate the initiative taken by, helped by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, also ConsumerCentriX and other related stakeholders. We did have a lot of data, but that data is not useful. The way this dashboard is providing the data, financial access, having what part of the account in bank, in non-bank financial institutions, in MFS, plus what are the stakes of women in access to credit. So all these informations are summarized in a way so that it helps to take informed decision by the product suppliers, also informed decision by the regulators. And I think if we can make it also contain the policy initiative taken by the regulators to help the women and the disadvantaged part of the population. So if we can make available these dashboards across the country through the different regulators, not only Bangladesh Bank, but by Securities and Exchange Commission, by microfinance institutions regulator like Microcredit Regulatory Authority, also insurance regulatory authorities, so that every part of the country could get information about what is going on in terms of facilities, in terms of their progress. So it would be doing a fantastic job, I suppose, and we are looking forward to make it more informative, more available to the all part of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman. Sophia, very similar question for you. Given that this time the Nigerian Gender Data Dashboard also pools in data from many different sources for the first time, where are the opportunities you see for how this dashboard's data can help financial service providers, for women's markets, as well as regulators who are implementing the financial inclusion strategy?
Thank you for the question, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to have this conversation. We're very excited about these dashboards. So in terms of the opportunities, Nigeria, first of all, is a huge market on the African continent. And so there's incredible opportunities therein. Now, when it comes to women's financial inclusion, one of the things that we know for a fact is that we have over 16 million women in the country who don't have any form of access to finance at all. A second sort of data point to note is, and on the boards earlier, there is the financing gap, which is a 1.7 trillion across the entire globe. In Nigeria, that figure is somewhere around $760 million in terms of the gap and the opportunity. So it depends on which way you look at it. So this dashboard, what it does is bring together data from different sources to the one sort of central location. We have previously had a lot of demand-side surveys that have been conducted, which provide for us, information around the women's segment, around, what the consumers, what their challenges are, what their barriers are. But we haven't really had in one place sort of data from the financial services providers themselves. And so the opportunities there are humongous. First of all, it provides for financial services providers a more nuanced interpretation of the data that exists. So you're able to see, for instance, like David had just presented, what percentage of women in what state have access or have accessed loans. What percentage of that is across what age group? What percentage of that is, what type of product are they accessing? And all of that data for the financial services providers is incredible, because then it helps them to tailor products, it helps them to innovate, and it helps them to understand if there's a saturated state or a saturated market, for instance, then they know not to go there, because then they can innovate along the lines of where the gaps actually exist. And I think, lastly, for the financial services providers, it helps them to provide competitive advantage, right? Because then they can see their performance alongside or in comparison to the entire market segment. And so what you're doing is you see how well you're doing in a particular product or in a particular area, you see how well the rest of the market is doing, and that helps to provide you with insights as to, well, should I go in there? Is there more business opportunities in there? Do I make a lot, is there profitability as well in serving the women's markets? And that's for the financial services providers. For the regulators, we at the Central Bank of Nigeria launched a national financial inclusion strategy in 2012 and have revised that strategy a few times since. And so it is a huge deal for us at the bank to measure and understand progress against the set targets that we have in Nigeria. And so the dashboard for us provides us with evidence so that we're making better informed policies. It provides us with, obviously, measures to track progress against our targets, like I mentioned. And it helps us to create the enabling environment for the financial services providers. So we're policymakers. We're ensuring that the financial services providers are serving the markets that need to be served. And in this case, when we talk about women's financial inclusion, the opportunities are huge there. So I'll stop there and hand back to you, Diva.
Thank you. Great opportunities in both Bangladesh and Nigeria. Continuing with the Nigeria use case, ABIODUN, I'd love to hear more about how the W initiative is going to be making use of this data as you design your strategy for reaching women's markets as well.
All right, thank you so much. So for us in Access Bank, data has actually been the basis that has been shaping the architecture of the products and services that we sell to the market. And of course, from the journey of our women's market, it was data that helped to establish the business case for staying true to that vision to continue there as a pioneer within the women's market. So, of course, when I had a sneak peek of this dashboard with David, I was so excited about it because data has actually been very limited in selling the product appropriately to the market, and in some cases, you push out a product and you see a different kind of reaction despite having a survey or a questionnaire done back end, and then you quietly try to withdraw it. So I think that this data, this dashboard is going to help to balance the demand side information as well as from the supply side, and then you're able to match appropriately. Case in point is the product specifically to the underserved women, which we call the Better Proposition. So Better Proposition was a product bettered from data, knowing that, yes, there is still that huge opportunity within the financial inclusion space for women, and we just have to look for a product that will take banking to them. They wouldn't come out of their shelf, and because of low literacy level, maybe, just not having the interest. And they're included informally in some way. They just do their own thing. So Better Proposition was bettered. We have Better Friends who then provide basic banking services to these women at their comfort. And that actually has grown, the customer base from those areas that we feel we still have a lot of women that are excluded. And of course, in anticipation, this year alone, we are looking to grow loan book for women by over 120 billion. And trust me, this kind of dashboard is going to help us to focus and deploy resources in the right direction. So we know where the gaps are. We know the channel to sell the products to the women, and we understand, the reasons behind those numbers that we are seeing. It goes beyond reports then. There are now insights that can actually help us to build new things. And I really see the gap closing faster than maybe we anticipate with the launch of this dashboard.
ABIODUN's been, since we started this project, ABIODUN's been messaging me once a month or once a quarter when they're doing their strategic planning, saying, I need to know the market penetration of this product for women in these northern states. Can you help me? So hopefully we should soon be able to have that.
I can't
but the
wait.
demand in Nigeria is huge for this kind of
Very true.
So you're looking forward to the launch later this month.
Yes.
All right. Well, that should be shared with the broader group. Whoever is in Nigeria would love to attend, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Well, just to come back to future steps and future ambitions, I'd like to turn back to Dr. RAHMAN and Sophie to really ask a little bit more about what are your future plans for upgrading the dashboards? What are some of the practical or non-practical insights you're hoping to get from this? And how do you anticipate these actually driving real change and policies on the ground?
Okay, thank you. Look, if you have data, aggregate data, you don't know anything what is going on there, and then we disaggregate it based on gender. And then it can be further disaggregated based on purpose, also based on individual. And we do have some problem with the individual data sharing regarding our national privacy policy, because it linked to their national ID card. You cannot expose their identity. So we are working on that so that the ID number could be mimicked with another proxy number so that we can have individual level data in the dashboard. In addition to that, we like to expand it for various policy purposes, so that awareness, so that the facility available for the women, they know it about. We do have some problem because when you go to the bank as a woman, they ask for collateral. They might ask for your business history. But women in our country not used to having actually even if she is in the business for last 5 years, there is no transaction recorded in the banks, or there is no profit loss or something recorded element. So the account in any of the financial institution helped them to keep their record, also to provide their evidence of their business in a successful way. In addition to that, we are allowing them as a women so that they can provide personal guarantee, which was not available earlier. And all these facilities government is trying to provide to improve the inequality situation so that more women are in the network, more women are in the workforce, and more women are in the inclusive activities. So by this dashboard, we can actually sensitize, we can also increase the transparency of our initiatives across the various stakeholders so that the initiative of the government get expedited, get momentum through different participation of the stakeholders. This is the plan we are looking forward to. Thank you.
So thanks. And for Nigeria, I think perhaps one of the things I didn't mention before was the fact that we are tracking the gender gap in access to finance, right? So there is the holistic access of women, but then there is that vis-a-vis how well the men's market is also growing. One of the things we noticed between 2020 and 2023 was that that gap widened, even though access to finance for women grew. And so it means that access to finance for the male segment is growing, exponentially more than access to finance for women. And so it's these types of sort of indicators or these numbers that we really want to get a lot more insight into. And that's demand side data. So supply side data, we think from the dashboards will help to provide a lot more information on why that is happening, give us, sort of an idea. Another thing to note is right now the data is banking sector alone. In Nigeria, we monitor, when we talk about financial inclusion, it's access to insurance as well, it's access to pensions. And so we envision that holistically, as we sort of implement the dashboard going forward, we're able to get a lot more data sets in there so that there's a lot more visibility on what's happening across the entire ecosystem. We envision at some point that we are even able to have data on consumer complaints by gender. This is me just being excited, right? Whether or not that can happen is a different thing altogether. But we're excited to be able to get insights along, all of these things, because if we then know what women are complaining, what products women are complaining about the most, perhaps then we can sort of intervene and figure out how to ensure that those products or those financial services providers are doing what they need to do to address the concerns. So a lot of, exciting things we're looking forward to, I guess. Yeah.
Wonderful. And, basically to ask both David and ABIODUN, if you had your dream gender data dashboard, what else would you like to include or upgrade your dashboard to have?
I should go first. Okay, so for me, I think it was earlier session today when someone had mentioned that you almost cannot predict what a woman wants. So for me, on that dashboard, would it be good to see what they are even thinking to get at in the next few years, ahead of time? Just maybe studying the behavior and be able to extrapolate to say this product would be relevant in the next few years. And from today, I can begin to put something together, before then, so that I am always at that advantage position to give them the product that is required at every point in time.
Wonderful. So bridging, anticipating demand and being able to model out what's needed.
Yeah, good.
So I'd first of all just like to highlight the importance of that question. So when a lot of these data projects start and they say, okay, we want to build a system to do this, and then you build the system and you start with the system and that's where it ends. But the importance of that project, if you could know anything, what would you know about the market to help you drive this change, is really fundamental. And anyone thinking about embarking on this journey to set up a data system, that starting point of what do I need to know to change the market is so fundamental, and you have to start there, and then you build the system backwards afterwards and see how close you can get to that original design. So it's such a fundamental and important question. And if I could have one wish, it's the continued proliferation of data analytics and insight products based on individual level data like Nigeria, this where you can disaggregate, you don't need to make that choice because you don't know what is going to provide the greatest value in terms of insights until you see it. We were just looking at some of the data from Nigeria, and it's completely wildly different from how we would have expected it to look. And if you'd asked us to sit down and come up with different metrics to organize it before we saw it, it would have turned out completely different. So that individual level data, where you're not reporting aggregated data, where the financial regulator or the aggregating body has everything, and then you can decide what value, you can find the value, and then you can push that out into the market. And that goes to another incredibly important thing for regulators, which is the recognition of these tools as coming close to being as powerful as policy for a regulator. So the dashboards that we've put together are gender focused. And if you as regulators and data aggregators collect this data, this incredibly powerful data, how you present it, the insights that you're presenting back to the market are as powerful to move the market as is policy. So it's a completely new tool for you that is incredibly powerful, not only to measure the market, but to give the market better access to be able to complete the goals that you're trying to achieve. So don't underestimate that. When you're investing and you're thinking about these systems, regulators, this is an incredibly powerful opportunity for you to change the market directly by the information you're providing to them.
It's a wonderful insight. And with that, I'm going to open it out to Q&A. I see you already anticipated me saying that. So we have one mic here and another there. And one at the back, please, as well. So we'll just take one round of questions and spend a few minutes with the panelists.
Thank you very much. My name is Veronique from ABN AMRO Bank, the Netherlands. And could you, maybe I didn't understand it well from the beginning, share what is the type of data and what did you learn from it? Because transaction data is, in the Netherlands, I've worked on projects. It needs to be 100% accurate, and when you have multiple bank accounts, it's super difficult to combine them. So I'm super curious if you can get me through that again.
So,
Let's just get questions first.
Hi, my name is Teresa Lawal. I work for Development Bank of Nigeria. Okay, so my question is, and it's kind of similar to that. So I see that you have like transaction types and also loan information. And I understand that the data that you're getting is more from the supply side. And this is going to be done progressively. But because there are some other, would I say, institutions that you may not have that data from, what's your plan to integrate names like maybe the microfinance institutions that are not regulated, maybe the fintechs? Do you have information? What's your plan? I say this because we're wholesale, so it'll be useful to have information from those areas as well. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for this panel. My question is going to any of you. As I understand, particularly the dashboard, it seems to me that it's more oriented to individual account. The question is, do you have also the dashboard for SMEs? And if yes, how is the process of collecting data that you can have also disaggregated by gender at SMEs? Okay, thank you.
Right. We'll just answer the first round before going to any, because we are almost out of time. David, would you like to start?
Sure. Okay. The technical one on the double counting of people and individuals. Nigeria is one of the first countries in the world to have a financial sector ID. So they have the BVN, the banking verification number. So to use any financial service in Nigeria, from a bank account to a mobile account, you have to provide that ID. And the banks report individual transaction data. So if you make a payment at a point of sale device, or if you go into your bank branch and transfer money to another account, that's connected to your BVN, and all of those records pass through CBN or NIBS, the national
Interbank settlement scheme.
Thank you. So no, so it's all raw data, and then the analysis. So we can use that BVN to aggregate to see if somebody has a credit product, and if they have one credit product or 5, and whether that's between one institution or 3, and then we can link that to their transactions. So everything can be brought together. So Nigeria is a particularly unique example, but I think that's where the market is going, and that's where you see the insights going from rich and interesting to market changing.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Okay, the issue of duplication is not related to only women. It is also related to men. So if you compare the percentage share of women, it will be remained almost same. So I think duplication will not hurt the policy purpose. So per se, yeah.
That too. Good point. Okay. Any other questions
Yes,
you'd like to
so
address?
perhaps I'll take the question on the plans to include other data sets. So the dashboard as it stands right now collects data that is from regulated financial services providers, right? We currently don't have information on there from, for instance, the microfinance institutions that the central bank does not regulate. But again, that it is a progressive or an iterative process, right? We're starting with the data that's readily available, because then we're able to sort of convince the market that we do need to get a lot more data to get holistic insights. So right now we have regulated financial services providers, the banks, even fintech data is on there. But in terms of the MFIs, we will sort of get to that bridge once we've fine-tuned and properly showcased what we have currently. And I think the final question was around whether it's individual or SMEs. Right now it's individual. We don't have, well, it depends. I think, again, iteration is the word I'm going to use here. We're collecting individual accounts because those are the accounts right now. You have BVN, he spoke about the bank verification number, and that's the data that we're collecting. And I should note as well that that's the back-end data that we're collecting, right? On the front end, there's really no personally identifiable information. So in terms of data privacy, concerns, we've sort of fixed that. But for SMEs, that is the next step. That is what we're looking at. We're going to be working, and I had noted down on the question of where we see the dashboard going, I had noted down that. I didn't get the chance to say it. We're excited to have conversations with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency in the country. There's a lot of surveys being conducted, but we want to be able to be sure that that data is clean enough, and it's data that we can beat our chest and say is reliable data. So we are making progress towards that.
Wonderful. I know there are more questions, but we're out of time, so I'd encourage you to ask the panelists these questions in the next break. But thank you for that wonderful discussion. And as a shout out and a prompt, there is a follow-up discussion this evening with the WIFID Community of Champions, which brings together stakeholders not only from Bangladesh and Nigeria, but also from Kenya, Peru, Chile, and many other countries as well, to discuss how dashboards, the code, and other opportunities can help push forward the movement for data, for better gender data for financial inclusion. So thank you all for joining and for the active engagement, and to our panelists today.
Thank you.